welcome back to the show. Time to go to the movies. This week we cast a critical eye on The Wedding Planner, and before we join our film reviewer, let's take a brief look at the clip.
Making everybody else's dreams in love come true, but in your own life,
Dad, it's okay.
While Mary was planning everyone else's love life, she didn't have one of her own.
Mary, you haven't been on a date in 2 years.
you can't avoid love forever.
You know those who can't do teach? Those who can't wed, plan.
So Faith stepped in.
Well, there we go. Was it any good? Time to ask the question of our film reviewer, Shirley Roddenberg. Shirley, hello.
Hello, Matt. How are you?
Good, good. The Wedding Planner isn't any good.
Oh, look, Matt, this is a fantastic movie. Now, this movie features Jennifer Lopez and Matt McConaughey in the leading roles as Mary and Steve. Now, Mary is the wedding planner extraordinaire. She's a woman who knows what she wants. She knows how to make everyone else's wedding perfect. In a lot of ways, she's like a duck. Above water, she's as calm as anything, but underneath, she's paddling flat out. And the storyline goes that her father has jacked her up with the so-called perfect man. And she's not really that keen. She's a very reluctant bride to be. But in the meantime, she comes across this accident and she meets this perfect man, of course. But unbeknownst to her, she has been commissioned to plan his perfect wedding.
Ah. Now, I'm a bit cynical about The Wedding Planner because of the genre that it's in. I thought, you've seen one of these movies, you've seen them all, The Wedding Planner, but you actually quite enjoyed it, Shirley.
I enjoyed it because it took the best bits of the other movies and added an original touch in its own. The Wedding Planner is, I guess, a bit of The Wedding Singer, a bit of Four Brides at a Funeral, a bit of Father of the Bride, but then again it's got some wonderful classic comedy moments that bring it its own special touch. There's the typical drunk mother-in-law, there's the typical hard luck wannabe lover. The ending is predictable, but the journey through the movie is wonderful.
Now, the critical question for me, Shirley, you have to answer this honestly. Can Jennifer Lopez sing and act?
Not that I'm a jealous woman, you understand, Matt. But I was pleasantly surprised. I thought nobody can have the goods, look that good, sound that good, and act as well. But her portrayal as Mary is sincere and honest. It's cheesy in parts, but she comes across extremely well. And yes, I'd like to see her in a more challenging role in the future. I think this movie didn't extend the full range of her skills. And having seen what she's capable of, I'm sure there is more to this lady than meets the eye, or does meet the eye, depending on who you are.
Well, depending on who you are, naturally, Shirley, being a guy and everything. Now, can you leave your brain in neutral for this particular movie?
Absolutely. It's a good movie to go on a first date with. It's a non-thinking, there's no violence, there's no explicit sex. This is one of those sit back and relax and let the movie do the work for you.
Quick score out of 10, Shirley?
I would give it an 8.5 out of 10, Matt.
Wow, 8.5. Shirley, you surprised me. That's amazing. Thank you, Shirley.
You're very welcome, Matt.
Well, there we go. My cynicism has been melancholy kicked into touch with an 8.5 out of 10 for The Wedding Planner. Well, that's just about us for today, but before we go, let's do a brief recap. Well, there we go. If you wish to get in touch with us about anything on the show or on South and About, you can get in touch with us at matt@ntv.co.nz. You can write to us, you can fax us, or you can give us a phone call. Well, that's it for today. Thanks very much for your company. On behalf of everyone here on South and About, I'm Matt Weatherford. We'll see you next time. Hi there, welcome to South and About. Coming up on today's show, we farewell the band Cornerstone. We pay a visit to Gore as part of our regular Historic Places slot. And we catch up with Helen Patterson, who you may know has put Invercargill on the publicity map. Well, the Southland District Council Policy Committee were recently advised that Industry New Zealand were going to investigate the establishment of high-speed communications in the Otago and Southland region. And to talk about the investigation and the high-speed communications, we have from the Southland District Council, Mr. Steve Kenny. Steve, welcome along.
Thanks, Matt.
Now, first of all, high-speed communications, what is exactly meant by that?
Well, basically it's the ability to transfer large amounts of data or moving pictures at a high speed, either within the province or within the region or out of the region, either nationally or internationally. And we're looking at trying to improve our lot in Southland.
So what's the state of the high-speed communications at the moment?
Well, currently Southland isn't terribly well served. Southland and Otago aren't terribly well served in terms of communications infrastructure. We currently, in the Southland District as an example, we currently have 58% of our residents that have access to internet, and Otago and Southland are one of the two fastest growing e-commerce communities in New Zealand. But unfortunately, because we have a relatively small population and a sparse population, the communications infrastructure isn't in place and hasn't been maintained for quite some time.
So why would that be? What are the main reasons behind that?
Well, I guess that we're not seen as a huge market in terms of the communications industry nationally, and consequently the effort appears to be placed in the areas of major competition. And obviously the tyranny of distance in rural communities rural areas does create all sorts of problems. But obviously the further you're away from a major metropolitan centre, or the greater the need for effective communication. So we just want to establish what our current and future needs are, so we can build a business case to develop more communication infrastructure, high-speed communication infrastructure.
So in terms of the investigation itself, and is it the District Council, Southern District Council South that is doing the investigation?
No, the Southern District Council is acting as the parent body for the investigation, basically the accountable body. The investigation itself will be undertaken by the Otago Southland Broadband Communication Committee. I know that's a mouthful, but basically that's a committee made up of all the local authorities in Southland and Clutha and Dunedin City Council. It also involves a lot of interested groups involved with high-speed communications, multimedia companies, the major learning institutions and so on.
So in terms of the investigation, how long would it take and what will be the primary or optimum result from the investigation?
Well, obviously we enter the study without any bias. We want to have an objective assessment of communication needs. We have a requirement to report back to Industry New Zealand by mid-August, and therefore the study itself will be commencing in the next fortnight. So people throughout the province will in fact be getting approached to answer questionnaires. I know people don't necessarily like doing that, but it is vitally important that we have a good response to the study. We are aiming at a 95 percentile confidence level survey, which will provide us with an excellent basis for undertaking a business study, which will follow on from that.
Steve, it's been wonderful talking with you. Thanks very much for your time.
Good.
We'll stay with us after the break here on South and About. We say goodbye to Cornerstone. Well, welcome back to the show. They're a band that have done us proud, I say, and now they're leaving us behind because they're going to Auckland. They, of course, are Cornerstone. They're here in the studio. The two Leons, Leon Wilkes, Leon McElhenney, and Robbie Wilkes. Welcome to you all.
Robbie Carroll.
Robbie Carroll. Oh, shit. Well, we'll give you different names, eh?
Please, no.
We'll give you different names and swap you around. Well, we'll call you Robbie Carroll for today, shall we, Robbie?
That sounds good. That sounds
Cool,
good,
man. Cool, man. Leon, you're going up to Auckland. Why are you going up to Auckland?
Well, we want to pursue a career in music, like full-time, all of us, and it's there's more opportunities, obviously, in a bigger place, and Auckland's the biggest place in New Zealand to go to, and so therefore we're off.
Of course, it also gives you the opportunity too to use that as a springboard to go to Aussie or perhaps break the European and American markets as well.
Very much so. If there's an opportunity there, we're going to take it.
Absolutely, which you can't really sort of do to a certain extent in Invervega, so you don't have the opportunities here, do you? Now, and how is it? Because one of the things I did pick up on was that if you do have an original playlist and do have original stuff, it is quite hard perhaps to break in and get regular gigs here in Invercargill. Why is that, do you think?
Well, a number of things. Obviously, population. There's not as many people, so I mean, you're going to find your fan base pretty early on, and you know, and when you're an originals band, how many? You know, you don't write 20 songs a week, so you're not going to have too many different songs from gig to gig. You don't want to overplay and become stale and, oh, Cornerstone playing again, that sort of thing. You don't want that to happen. Bigger place, that really doesn't happen so much because you can play at different places and, you know, there's more people, so it's really people. It comes down to people.
Okay, Robbie Carroll, Mr. Carroll. Robbie,
That's me, mate.
How do you feel about shifting up to Auckland, man?
I'm pretty keen on the idea. I can't wait to get out of here, really, to be honest. Just get up the road and get on with it, you know. Because it's the next ticket to the rest of the world, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and is that something that Cornerstone want to do, sort of gig around the world and check things out?
We want to take the music to the rest of the world.
Yeah, so how long would you consider yourself, say, being in Auckland before perhaps you split for bigger horizons or brighter horizons or bigger pastures?
That's a tough one because that comes down to how many people we can get in behind us, like we have had in behind us in Invercargill. The reason why we're going to Auckland in the first place is because people have supported us down here, and if we can get that same sort of support in Auckland, that will be, it'll just be a perpetual thing. It'll keep rolling, hopefully. Yeah.
So with you, Leon, you obviously toured nationwide. You've been to Auckland. You've had a taste of it. How did you find Auckland when you toured, when you gigged?
It was good. It was good. I actually like it. I suppose there's two kind of people. There's the people that either they like it or they really hate it. But I was one of the ones that seemed to like it. It was all right.
So concrete jungles.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now with your album, you've put out an album, of course. Awesome album.
Thanks.
When are you looking at? Will you look at doing another album once you've arrived in Auckland?
Yeah, we really we've got all these things that are in the pipeline at the moment with recording another album, and we really don't know when and how yet.
Dead certain.
But we've got so much new material to record. It's just a matter of when and who, basically. Who we're going to record with. So.
And money as well.
Yeah, money.
Money's the big thing. Has it been a worry for you, Robbie, and the band? Well, to say the least.
It's all that's been holding us back, really, is just money. That's about it. Yeah.
So when it comes to maybe sorting out, say, material for an album, who would you like to go with primarily? Is there any producer or any team that you like to go with, or any particular label that you would like to gravitate towards?
Well, there's definitely studios in Auckland that have famous, like York Studio. I mean, imagine getting to record in York Studio. That would be fulfilling, eh? That would be a dream come true. So maybe we'll try our best to, get something like that happening.
We'll have to save $1 million first, though.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
It's going to cost a fortune to record there.
Yeah, well, it's very expensive, eh? You've really got to have some corporate funding behind you, a major label deal or something. But who knows, you know?
So once you've ensconced yourself in Auckland and perhaps done a few gigs, will we see you back down here on a regular basis doing regular gigs?
Not regular.
Not for a while.
I wouldn't call it, say, regular, but definitely Christmas times, things like that, we'll be coming home to see family, and we're not going to forget about this place. This is our home.
Yeah, it's home sweet home.
We love this place. If we didn't have to leave, we wouldn't, but there's not many opportunities for us down here.
Yeah. Well, guys, all the best for Auckland, guys, and all the best with your music, and just hope it goes really sensationally well for you.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for dropping by.
Cheers.
Hey, stay with us here on South and About. After the break, we go to Gore as part of our Historic Places Trust. Welcome back to the show. Time to catch up with our regular slot of historic places. And today, local Gore historian Jim Geddes will take us on a tour around Gore. Let's see how he goes.
Front of now is the former Gore Coronation Library. Now this is one of two significant buildings designed by Invercargill architect E.R. Wilson. This particular building was built with the grant from the Carnegie Foundation from Scottish philanthropist Andrew Carnegie. He actually fully funded this building, which was uncommon in those days. There were 18 Carnegie libraries built in New Zealand. Most of them received a 50% subsidy, but we had a mayor called Dougal Popplewell, the mayor of the day, who was a very strong advocate of library services in Gore and put pressure upon Carnegie to consider a full subsidy on this building. So it's quite a unique. It's one of our prized local buildings. It's one of two brick public buildings designed by Wilson. The other is the Methodist Church in Irk Street in Gore. Again, opened about the same time, 1910. It was originally designed to be seat 500 people and to have a spire, but as funds of the time were in somewhat short supply, they opted for a smaller alternative, but still a very handsome brick building of the era. Now this is one of Gore's key landmarks, and it's right in the middle of Gore, and it's not only a local institution, but it's very much a national icon. This is Fleming's Cremota Mill in Mersey Street. It was established in 1878 to mill a large crop of wheat grown by the New Zealand Agricultural Company, and the mill later specialised in processing and processes to this day locally grown oats. Its famous Cremota brand was developed in the early 1900s, and mascot Sergeant Dan, as we see there, the Cremota Man, made his appearance in the 1920s. Although now owned by a large food conglomerate, the name Fleming's is still retained, and that's from the time the mill was owned and managed by the local Fleming family. The mill has suffered numerous fires over the years and a lot of rebuilding in its long history. The earliest structure still remaining is the 1892 four-storied building fronting Gorton Street. The most significant feature is the 92-foot chimney, which dates from 1912 and was constructed by John Day of Gore using 34,000 local bricks. Now it's been awarded a Category 1 registration by the New Zealand Historic Places Trust, and it's the only building in Gore district which has been awarded a Category 1 registration. Okay, this is another significant Gore landmark, and this is the old East Gore Presbyterian Church in Rock Street in Gore. In 1880, prominent architect R.A. Lawson of Dunedin was invited to draw up plans for a church to seat 200 people. The belfry was to be fairly substantial, useful as well as ornamental. Now totara was used for the piles and red pine for some of the work, but as costs were a major consideration at that time, white pine was used in much of its construction, and this decision has since haunted church committees who have struggled to control the borer infestation in the softwood. Now it was opened in 1881, and it was only a few years later, in 1892, the church was extended to cater for a burgeoning congregation. A hall and Sunday school rooms were added again in 1962, at which time major renovation work was carried out on the interior of the building. The 51-foot church spire and steep roof were given a coat of paint for the first time since the initial coat in 1881, and have certainly stood the test of time. Now this building is a significant building in the respect that R.A. Lawson, it was the only wooden building that Lawson is known to have designed. He tended to specialise in stone, First Church Dunedin being a prime example of his work. Now this has been recognised as a significant building by the Historic Places Trust, and it's been awarded a Category 2 registration. It's really pleasing to see the adaptive reuse of a heritage building, and it's equally pleasing to see the redevelopment of a heritage building, and this is the case with the old First Gore High School building in Gore in Norfolk Street. 1910 seemed to be a fairly active year for architecture in Gore, and this was the time that this building was constructed. It was originally mooted that the Gore High School would be on the triangle in Gore, and it was moved to a site, the proposed site, which was on the banks of the Mataura River. And when it was opened in 1911, it attracted some very distinguished guests, and it was Sir Aparama Ngata who gave the school its name, Kura Awa, School by the River, and when he officially opened it. It was probably an unfortunate sighting at that time, because we didn't have flood protection until 1913. So in the great flood of early 1913, most of the school playing field was washed away in a fairly significant flood. So flood protection was enacted very shortly afterwards. But the school itself attracted a large number of students from outlying areas, and it necessitated the building of a new school, which was constructed in Cootes Road in 1954. The current building has been used by a number of community organisations, most specifically the Gore Repertory Society, who hold the Little Theatre in here, and it's a setting for significant theatre activity.
Well, there we go, an historic look at Gore. Well, stay with us here on South and About. After the break, we take in weekend events, and we also talk with Helen Patterson, who has put Invercargill on the map. And welcome back to the show. Well, in a moment we are going to talk with Helen Patterson, who of course put Invercargill on the map with her wonderful publicity with Solid Gold FM. But before we do, let's check out weekend events that are kindly and proudly brought to us by the Kelvin Hotel. A warm Southland welcome to the 2,200 delegates from around New Zealand visiting us for the National Play Centres Conference. Have an awesome time. On Saturday at the Embassy Theatre from 8 till 11 p.m, it's the Smoke Free Rock Quest. Tickets are $12. Come along.